Hey everybody, what's going on? This is Bruce with Habowskistudio. Hope you've been enjoying the last two videos with how I prepare my frames for my paintings, my floater frames that are like on this painting here. And hope the techniques can be useful for you. There is a part 3 coming. It's going to be on how I put my paintings into frames, that sort of thing. So be looking forward to that. But I thought I'd take a break and bring you a painting video of a winter stream painting I did recently, and it came out pretty well. So let's take a look at it, and of course it'll be in voiceover, and enjoy. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new to the channel, and for everyone else, thanks for checking out the videos. And as you saw in the intro to this video, I am now pretty active in posting on Instagram, so be sure to follow me there. And I post works in progress, other little tidbits to have to do with painting that is not going to be on my channel. So be sure to follow me there. All right, let's get to it. Hey everybody, how's it going? And thanks for joining me again for another video. As I said, we'll be doing a part 3 for the framing portion. I'm still working on it, so I thought I'd bring you a painting video. In the part 3, I'm going to be showing you how I finish the joined frame, painting it and such, and then also how I put the artwork in the frame. There was a couple questions on the last video about how I do that, so that will be covered in part 3. Excuse me. Okay, in this piece, I was just driving down a road, and this usually happens often because you never know what's going to catch my eye, and this little stream that was having some nice little reflective qualities in it proved, as you'll see later in the video, to be quite challenging. But I'm doing my usual kind of a typical block end using some burnt umber to get some base design going on, and just putting that in with a flat brush there. And I really like doing winter scenes. I think you really get a chance for the structure of things to stand out graphically because of the snow cover on the ground. It's really amazing how snow transforms areas that normally you drive by and there is no visual interest whatsoever. But you get a little snow on that and boom, there it is. And I especially like how you get hints of sunlight on portions of snow while the other snow is in shadow, like this particular painting, and I think that adds some nice drama to the scene. So quite enjoyable. And also what I'm really happy with in this piece was how the layers of paint have some nice textural quality to them to add interest to the painting. You step away, of course it looks like a pretty realistic scene, but up close you see the paint handling and that sort of thing. I'm really looking for that balance. I really enjoy that. And as you saw in the beginning, as this started, you saw the palette of colors that I chose to use. And I still quite often experiment with limited palettes. I believe that's a really good way to learn about color mixing. Keeps things fairly simple too, and you just got to be aware certain colors are not going to be a certain chromatic saturation that you may need for certain cases. And if that's okay with you, if you're out in the field and you only have certain colors, then you just need to make those work and work on getting the proper value of the color. And I just think it gives a lot of harmony to the painting. And for me personally, in a lot of landscapes, very few rare occasions, but a lot of landscapes are fairly muted and a lot of grayish color. So if you really look, and what I think attracts our attention, of course, say in fall when you have more saturated tones like the changing of the leaves, orange leaves and such, what attracts your attention to them is they're surrounded by grays. And the sunlight hitting those brilliant chromatic colors is what catches your eye. So, you can pull that out in your painting. I was able to kind of get a nice orangey color just in the distant trees with the surrounding colors kind of being muted and just using the cad red light, which is, you know, pretty chromatic, but mixed with the yellow ochre, you know, you get a nice little orangey tone. Okay, coming up in a few moments is going to be some real-time commentary on my thought process as I was working on some I got a little bit of the water in there now, but as I continued working on the water, my reference photo was initially very intriguing, you know, the initial overall effect, but as I got to the water portion, very confusing in the photo, so I've had to be quite creative, as you'll see coming up. And you can see right now I'm just kind of suggesting still, getting some suggestion of tree trunks and such in there. So it's just a building process, going back and forth to different parts of the painting to build out from there and that sort of thing. I just want to take a quick moment too to, as you saw in the beginning, I am on Instagram, posting a lot of things with works in progress and other, if I take trips or little tidbits art related. So I'd like to invite you to take a look at my account, and if you like what you see, and if you wouldn't mind hitting that follow button, and just trying to get my work out there on different social media platforms so people can see it. And now let's get to some thought process of how I went about doing this painting. Okay, hope you're enjoying this video so far. I'm kind of happy with how it's coming out for sort of blocking it in quickly. I usually can get a little too caught up in defining everything. I try to go a little more broad, and been just using terps up to this point to get the paint moving around. Now I've switched to some Gamblin Neo McGilp. Kind of like this stuff. I've used it before. Helps the paint go around, go on smoother. So just going to start getting some strokes on here, and the palette will go over later. For what I'm using, it's very limited. It is 5 colors in white. Some more cooler tones here. Try not to over scrub into the previous layer. Just trying to get a fluid pile. I wouldn't say fluid like very liquid. More of the viscosity, get it to be just a little more thinner than honey. And you see how I'm moving my strokes around, and where the shadow meets the light, like over here on the left, I want to really define the edge of light, and for that light I've used some yellow ochre and cad red light and white. And all this in here is just like scrubby grass and sort of thing that you get along creek beds here in well, not just in Maine, and a lot of locations where you may be painting in nature. In the water I'm still working on resolving. There's some chunky bits of ice and water coming through. The values are very close though, so it'll be a little challenge to see how I'm going to handle that. And watching out for where I have the ice on top of the water. Trying to separate the two, and once I apply some highlights in the shadow areas, that should help too. And I think I will experiment with some palette knife work in certain areas to really bring out some contrast and some texture. So that's what we've got going on so far. Now when I used the palette knife, I pretty much just, I used the same size one. I didn't really get into too many different varieties. I wanted to keep it simple. I've had pretty good luck with just using this little diamond style palette knife. Worked really well. And I've just really gotten into the habit of applying paint in a lot of cases with the knife, because then you can just manipulate it with the brush, and it seems a faster and more efficient way to get the paint on quick. I would think obviously especially useful if you're painting outdoors and trying to make a statement quickly, and of course activating the surface and making it interesting to look at. Now, as I mentioned, I'm just putting in some things I see in the reference photo. Okay, so now I'm going to get some Neo Magilp, get in some of the blue, and just mixing a little white into the original shadow color here. Want a subtle, probably about a 1.5 value jump. That's what I'm shooting for, especially right in here. Want to try to lay that paint on there. See? Because there's going to be undulations in the snow, so that's what I'm trying to mimic. And with all this chunkiness in some of the strokes, if you may not like that, you take a softer round brush later on after, towards the last touches of the painting. Smooth out any edges, hard and soft. That's where you get some of your edge control going on. You can also, rather than go right into blending these chunky strokes out towards the end, you can also just take a smaller flat and chisel them down to give the illusion that they're blended more with a smaller format flat. Don't worry about looking too unrealistic or whatever. We're going to build over these, but I'm suggesting where I might have some interest, and I'm anticipating some of the strongness of the dark here to be dissipated as I lay color over the top in terms of intermingling with some colors that are already there. My key is to keep the integrity of the how it looks right now, freshness. Now, get some interest with bringing over some of this color into areas over here, but not as saturated to take away from the focal point. Like this little scrubby bushes. I'm going to see what this angled flat from its Utrecht Tuscan series. Don't worry about some bits intermingling there. Now I'm really just kind of experimenting with some mark making. I'm intensifying touch of white into that, trying to apply flat strokes, tip of the brush, that sort of thing. And now I'm going to just very lightly, I'm holding my brush way back here, I'm going to just try to suggest some limbs and that sort of thing. Yeah, I'm really getting used to really paying attention to how I hold the brush. I think it's very useful not to hold it like a pencil too much unless you're doing some very controlled, a few marks here and there for detail. But it really gives you, I think, more control in a lot of ways, and especially if you're painting trees and such, if you're kind of, it helps you be a little more organic with your mark making. That could assist in helping with trees. Okay, we're kicking along here on this painting. I hope you're enjoying it. I've still got some issues to resolve with the water. I'm not sure really how I'm going to handle that. That might change completely towards the end of the painting. I'm not sure yet. My reference photo is a little confusing, so I've been trying to simplify it, but I'm just working on the other parts right now, and I'll deal with that towards the end. It's really not that big a deal. I got a little bit of the reflection of the trees in here. So that's nice, and I'll be playing around putting some dried grass and such in there, but I'm liking the overall feel of it at the moment. Just got to really resolve the water and decide what I'm going to do. So let's continue on. Now here I am just applying some thicker strokes to suggest those trees and such, and starting to build up. When you have a little bit of thinner layers in the tree line in the back, it kind of helps bring these forward. Now getting in that juicy kind of different layers of paint, suggesting with subtle value shifts the different layers in snow, and I think that adds a nice visual texture to that big area. So something to experiment with. Values really rule in my paintings. I really love working with them. Okay, I'm going to take a little break here and go have some breakfast and stuff, but before I do that, I'm going to take a look at the painting in reverse in the mirror. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of this. It really allows for certain aspects of the painting to jump out at you if they're bothering you. So let's take a look at that. Okay, the painting's behind me now, and I'm just going to take this little piece of mirror I have and find the painting there. There we go. Sorry if a little bit of the video camera gets in the way here, but I'm going to zoom in a little. Liking how the color patches are working. There's a little bit bothering me about the stream, and it's kind of hard to explain that while I'm holding the mirror. So we're going to go back to the other view here of the painting, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay. You know, sometimes we get caught up in aspects of the painting, we're going along and blocking stuff in, and what I'm not liking is the sameness of this dark and this dark. And I'm going to have to think about that while I'm eating breakfast and resolve it when I get back. And there's a few breaks. I want to make this a little more irregular. You know, in the block-in stage, I was making a little more geometric structure, and I committed to some of that, but I am going to make that a little more organic as one starting point. But some stuff needs to happen over here. I might break this up into smaller batches or group this one in a bigger batch. I'm not sure yet. Hey everybody, okay, I'm back from eating some food, getting some energy here. So I got to resolve this water. It's the edges of the creek and that sort of thing a little bit before I continue on too much. And I'm just going to push some paint around. I got some ideas, so let's see what happens. I'm going to first start with moving some of this water over here, trying to break up this line a bit. If I don't like that, I can always, you know, reestablish. Just try to move this around a bit, and I'll manipulate a bit with the brush to get what I need also, but just want to get some paint on here. Barely touching the point to the panel, the tip I mean, same thing. I'll probably spend, seems like I'm going to spend 90%, you know, like I've painted the other stuff fairly quick and I'm liking it, but this water is really a challenge. Kind of liking that. Now I go back into the shadow snow color. Split this difference here, just try to that's a little more like it. Okay. Don't fuss too much. Alright. Now I gotta start working on some of this, and I think because this is an initial block-in, I think once I start getting some grasses going, that'll help break up the regularity that seems to compare in terms of the other side. So time for some time lapse to do that, and we'll go from there. I think this is a good video to show everybody that when you're working on a painting, not everything's going to be resolved, and you're going to have to fight through some stuff and not give up. You just got to keep working at it, trying to think logically, not getting too disenchanted or whatever. And I just stuck with this, and because I knew I can work on it and improve it, and we'll continue on with the result. Okay, I'm kind of liking that. I am going to see about, I'm thinking of putting a log here so that the eye doesn't go right off the scene here. I'm gonna check that out. I'm pretty much kind of now making a few things up for what the painting needs beyond my reference photos, so that's kind of what's going on. And let's say there's a log. It seems like this angle works nice. Let's try it out. Don't worry about the snow we painted there before. Right now I'm just kind of going to stare at it for a second. I think that's going to work nicely. It's going to give me some rim lighting of some reflected snow in shadow. That's lighter value. So let's just get some snow on there. I like the idea of it, for sure. Just a matter of refining it. See about splitting a difference here. Paint's thick, so I can't be too noodling around, but I can do some. Okay, and I still have to resolve what's going on in the actual water there too. It's a challenge for sure. See in my reference photo, it's really hard to decipher what I want to do. Well, let me show you. Let me get into the reference photo right now. Hold on. So let me zoom in. See if you can see how disjointed that whole area looks. There's a bit of crusty snow going on, so it's very kind of too much jumbled up. I'm trying to simplify it, but I'm still not positive as to what I want to do. I don't want to close it in too much, but I think I might have to go with a dark value, and I think that might help offset the snow and shadow more. So I'm going to go for it and see what happens. It's going to get totally repainted. This one I'm talking about, you know, I just got to a point when I was like, you know what, this bugs the heck out of me, and I do not like it the way it is. So you just got to take a huge risk and go for it. And I'll still probably obviously not be happy with it. We'll see, but you got to do something. And also I just felt like a darker value somewhat was going to really help work with the rest of the shadow pattern in the foreground. And working with that palette knife to get the paint on quick and to add some textural interest, I think helped a lot too. I mean, it's not pretty, but there's already an improvement, I think, for the overall effect of the painting. I think it connects and has some bigger shapes. Still has to be refined, obviously, but much more in tune with the rest of the painting. And it wasn't working before, so you know what? You just got to do it. You just got to go big or go home, you know? And, you know, you're not going to like it the way it is before, so it really doesn't take much effort to try to improve it. So definitely highly recommend you don't settle for something in your painting. If you don't like it, try to fix it. And it may be a total flop, but you got to try. So I'm liking the improvement here so far. There's some refinements I have to redefine. Some of those grasses, big deal. Really liking the palette knife action I'm getting on here, and has a nice feel to it. Now maybe I can suggest, whoops, there's a few, nothing major, but now I can split these dry brush, no paint, and I want to barely touch the edge there. Wipe off excess. Whatever you do, don't start doing that. Want to go in one direction, wipe off. I think that works better. Soften some edge over here. Got a little bit there. And we can keep these little bits of snow, maybe a rock covered with some snowy ice or whatever. Okay, that I'm liking that. Now I just got to reestablish. This has to be somehow I'm just doing a few spots of horizontal. Alright, I'm going to do something a little drastic. I'm going to try to get a little bit of lightness of the sky reflected down, and I'm using somewhat pure, just a hint of sky color, but mostly white, because we already got a lot of dark paint, so it's going to it's going to lighten up. It's going to intermix with a little bit with the dark there already. So where we have some reflections here, I'm going to pull out the reflections by painting around them. Try to. See what happens. Not sure if this is going to work. And now I'm going to go down, try to create some feeling of trickling water. And I mean, no harm, no foul. You know, this is techniques I've never actually got heavy into before. So I did a little palette knife painting recently, a little 5x5, just having fun one day, and I did this little side-to-side motion when I was pulling the paint down, and I really liked it in that piece. So maybe it'll lend itself to here. Now I'm going to take a big brush and try to soften that in a bit. We'll see what happens. Well, this water is proving to be quite the challenge for me. Mostly because I'm not really following anything in my picture, so I'm kind of feeling what the water might be doing in my recreated scene on my panel here. And you saw me with that little time lapse there with that fat moppy brush thing, trying to go real gentle. But I'm still, I don't know, I'm not feeling it. And sometimes we can just start working it too much, but I'm really trying to, I think, some horizontal movements now. Trying to not be too mechanical about it. Trying to break up some of, just trying to vary the brushwork. Too much, then it breaks up the whole mass that we had going, which I'm thinking I might be doing that. We need some dark tones in there. Thinking like a suggestion of kind of shallow water, and it's catching some, I know what might work. I'm going to try maybe some pebbles and rocks in the water and then have the water cut around with highlights from the sky. I'm going to try that. This is the way it happens sometimes with painting, we have an idea. I was all gun-ho when I started this, and then I get to this water and I'm like, dang. But this I'm loving. I'm just trying to get some dark notes. Trying to, want to get it dark along the, where that log in the water is. And we'll see what happens with this idea. That's the way it happens sometimes. Nothing is perfect by a long shot. Let's say there's some poking out here. We've got quite a bit of thick paint on there, so you're going to have to be, unless you really want to work an area, you got to scrape it out, but I'm really just trying to commit new strokes on top. Turn the brush. Okay, I think this might be okay. Gotta make sure the rock's not sitting on the water at a weird angle. Get the water's level. Water always finds its own level there, so try not to make the rock look too oddball, I guess. You can shape it up with some highlights and such. Obviously there's hard edges to them now, but I'm just placing them to see how I like it. Okay, I'm feeling this now. This is I'm liking it. I'm liking it. Much Much better. I'm going to live with that for a little bit before I go picking it to death. So let's move on to some other parts. Okay, I'm just going to work on getting in some tree branches to put in the support for the little scrappy bits of leaves left over. Trying to hold my brush really gentle. Trying to find, looking at my reference photo, the life of the tree, like the movement of the limb, trying to be organic. Barely holding on to it. I'm not perfect at it by a long shot, but if we don't try it on some paintings, and then over time you'll collect information to learn. So I always think of painting as a puzzle pieces, you know, kind of going to a painting class and expecting to finish painting in one night is unrealistic. All I want to learn is one piece of the puzzle that I can save and add to the next piece of the puzzle in the next class, and so on, and then eventually, you know, it'll all come together. There's so many ways to paint. It's just pretty mind-boggling sometimes, and that's what makes it stay interesting for you over the long haul. Sorry, it's hard to talk and paint sometimes at the same time. And I'm just going to connect a few of the palette knife marks I made earlier to have them. And this is like trees behind these foreground trees and shadows that are kind of lit. And because I'm just using yellow ochre, there's not a lot of bright. But I'm going to try to really get some white mixed with that yellow ochre. You're not going to get a deep saturated it's not really an acidic yellow-green anyway, but I want that contrast against this shadow. And you're only going to get a stroke or two, and you got to reload. Got a lot of paint on here for me. Just dabbing with this small flat to suggest the light catching here and there. That's pretty good. Alright, let's zoom back out. Whew, we're moving along here. This video is going to be long. It's going to be interesting to see how I'm going to have to, edit and all that good stuff, and still give you information in the painting process. Now I'm just going to suggest, try to some darker the reflections of the trees, trying to not make it so hard like I did before, see if that's going to work or not. Basically, I'm trying to get three values to really give a sense of realism, and then I can nuance those in between as much as I need to, and that is the light, mid-tone, and the dark. And if I can get enough of that suggested, it's amazing how little you need to give you a quick sense of realism. And I'm trying to do this all in one sitting, but I feel like this piece is going to require a few scumbling highlights after the fact, and you know, it needs what it needs. It sure has some meat to it, though. I really am liking that aspect to it. just a suggesting, you know, I'm just trying to suggest. I got to live with that for a while and let it tack up and then do some more layers. But essentially it's there. Oh, I'm going to go ahead and do some bits of, or try to, bits of sky there. I don't want to ruin anything I got going on. But we also just can't be afraid of ruining something to make it better, like I did with the water. Got to take risks, or we don't move ahead in anything in life as humanity in general, really, if you think about it. So, sometimes we think we got to always mix a color, and sometimes color out of the tube by itself is enough. Get a little more dark. Okay, well, this painting sort of, I would say, kicked my butt a little bit in the water. I'm pretty happy kind of with how it's going in the water right now. I am going to let this tack up and then do some more layers. Could potentially be palette knife and such once this is dry. So hope you enjoyed it, and I'm sure I'll be posting it on my website soon so you can check it out there. Okay, this concludes this painting video, and I hope you enjoyed it. I'd love to hear your comments, what you think about it, and if you're new to the channel, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it, and I invite you to subscribe. Be sure to hit the bell notification icon and to be alerted as to when I post new videos. And everyone can take a look at my Facebook page, Habowskistudio. I post works in progress pictures and other sort of art-related events and ideas and things of that nature. And don't forget my website, www.habowskistudio.com. Till the next video, take care. Bye.